Hello, my friends. Today, the situation on the front line remains very difficult, but the Ukrainian forces are doing everything they can to shift the war onto Russian territory. Therefore, the Kursk operation continues, and there are reports of offensive actions in Kurakhove and many other settlements. Although the pace of the Ukrainian troops advance has significantly slowed, the fact that the Ukrainian forces have moved onto Russian territory is a deep wound for the Russians. They can't comprehend how such a situation could occur in a major nuclear country with the world's second largest army. Overall, the Russians are very dissatisfied with what's happening, and as it appears, even though the pace of the Ukrainian advance has slowed, the Russians still cannot reclaim their lost territory and return to the Russian border. Meanwhile, in the Kharkiv direction, the Russians continue to break through to the village of Lipty, and there are reports of shelling in border settlements. Fighting also continues in Vovchansk, but the Russians haven't achieved any new successes here, and the front line has remained unchanged for a long time. It can essentially be said that the Kharkiv operation has failed for the Russians. Now let's move on to the Pokrovsk direction. Today we see that just yesterday the Russians captured Lysivka, then Mikhailivka, and earlier Membrik. They are now assaulting Ukrainsk, then Svatove, and also Karlivka. The Russians released a video from Svatove showing them raising a flag over the administrative building of the Russia mine. Additionally, the Russians are trying to advance through the fields from Novohorodivka, and the assaults of Horodivka also continue without pause. The Ukrainian forces are still managing to hold the defense here. However, reports continue to come in that the outskirts of Mirnograd are now effectively in the gray zone as Russian sabotage and reconnaissance groups are entering the area. It's reported that yesterday Sirsky personally arrived at the Pokrovsk direction, but whether this will change the situation remains to be seen. In the Toretsk direction, significant activity continues. The Russians are trying to expand their territory they controlled around New York. Likewise, the assaults on Nelipivka, Nekhailivka, Pivnichne, and Neodruzhba persist as they attempt to broaden their controlled area. All Russian movements here are aimed at getting as close as possible to Toretsk. However, for now, the front line remains unchanged over the past day. In the Chasiv Yar direction, the situation has also worsened. The Russians have started launching more attacks here. Today, fighting continues for Grigorivka, Ivanivske, Klishivka, and Andriivka. The Russians are also advancing through the fields towards Bilahora. So far, there have been no new changes on the front line, and the Ukrainian forces are doing everything possible to repel all attacks. In the Siversk direction, fighting continues for Bilohorivka, Verkhnyokamensky, and Spirne. However, the Ukrainian forces are successfully holding the defense, and there are no changes on the front line. In the Kreminna direction, the only recorded battles are near Nevsky, where the Ukrainian forces are successfully repelling all attacks, resulting in no changes in the situation. In the Svatove area, Russian activity remains high. They have already claimed full control over Stelmakhivka. Meanwhile, assaults on Novoyegorivka continue with attempts to break through to Druzhelyubivka, Grekivka, and Makiyivka. This situation is challenging. However, despite the intense activity of the Russians, the Ukrainian forces have managed to hold them back, and the front line remains unchanged. In contrast, There are changes in the Kupiansk direction. The Russians have captured Sinkivka, and unfortunately, they have made some advances here. It's evident that even in this relatively less active direction, the Russians are seeing more successes. Additionally, shelling of Kupiansk and Petropavlivka has intensified. It's clear that the Russians are preparing to break through directly to Kupiansk with the fields in the near future. Further south, the fighting for Kolesnikivka continues, and they are attempting to push towards Krukhlyakivka. They have had some successes in this area previously, making the situation difficult. In the Kurakhove direction, the Russians are also not slowing down their offensive actions. They are conducting up to 30 assaults per day and are making breakthroughs near Orikhiv and the village of Kostiantynivka, which is already under their control. They are now trying to build on this success, and it seems they still have sufficient resources for this. In the Vuhledar direction, assaults on Vodiane and Vuhledar continue along with persistent shelling along the entire front line. However, as of today, there have been no changes, and the Ukrainian forces are successfully holding the defense. In the Zaporizhzhia direction, the Russians continue their attempts to break through to the town of Orikhiv, with offensive actions also recorded near Novodanilivka. However, the Ukrainian forces are successfully repelling all attacks, and the front line remains unchanged. In the Kherson direction, shelling of the right bank continues, but the Russians are not conducting any new offensive operations. Additionally, the General Staff has officially confirmed that Ukraine has lost one F-16, with the pilot tragically killed. Meanwhile, the Russians are already worried that a new Ukrainian long-range missile might soon strike Russian territory.
Но наш президент высказался, что применение дальних ракет – это фактически казус белли, далее поехали. Но тут Украина выступила с инициативой. Значит, Зеленский сказал, у нас есть такая ракета баллистическая, полетит на 500-700 километров. Если мы начинаем разбирать ракету, это у них был перед началом специальной военной операции проект оперативно-тактического комплекса «Гром-2». Заявлял, что он полетит на 500 километров, но не хватало комплектующих.
Ну, то есть есть такая ракета, называется она «Поляница».
Но Полоница, как угодно ее называть, это Гром-2 был проект такой, который не работали, но из-за того, что не хватало некоторых комплектующих, они его не завершили тогда. Но я думаю, сейчас немножко подработали, и теперь они проверят очередную красную линию, а если полетит не натовская ракета, а полетит украинская на такую, какая будет реакция Москвы?
Поляница, not Полоница. Okay, that's all from me. So please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on all the latest news. Thank you for watching, and see you next time. Bye bye.